So one of the things we want to do is just very briefly give you an idea of sort of what affects your property, and as you go, there's a variety of regulations out there. One is the potential historic status. You'll notice some colors on the plans of the different buildings, and what they mean is the ones that are in red. We've analyzed all the buildings up and down the corridor. Those are buildings that are older than 50 years, that are in the Rincon Heights Historic District. That neighborhood was actually established as a historic district. Those buildings are not significant enough individually to be on the historic register, but they're part of the fabric, and so they qualify as a contributor to that historic district. It doesn't limit your ability to be able to modify it or tear it down, but it does give you tax credits and tax breaks, so there are some benefits there. The peach color says that those are buildings that are older than 50 years, and if like Miles or other neighborhoods decide to create a historic district, those buildings would qualify as well as contributors for that. The ones that are actually a yellow color, there's only a few of them on the court. I think Miles Elementary School and Broadway Village are a couple. Those are old enough, they're older than 50 years, and they're significant enough on their own that they could qualify to be on the National Historic Register. The purple ones are ones that are not yet 50 years old, but they are also significant enough that they could, once they're old enough, they could probably qualify as National Historic Register. So, let's see, go the other direction here. Obviously, zoning are a lot of the regulations. Some of you guys I think, are fairly familiar with this, but zoning regulates the type of use that's approved on your site. It requires certain quantities of parking, loading zones, setbacks from property lines, and it depends upon what the adjacent zoning is. It limits the height of your building, or the kind of the density or the amount of building that you can put on that site. And it's actually a big, thick document, but there's sort of some of the sort of the basic things that we'll talk about that affect you. Okay, I'll get this right soon. But there's a lot of others, like traffic engineering. That's the group that will say where you can actually have a curb cut on the road, and now you tie into the street. Environmental services, fancy name for trash and recycling, so the dumpster requirements. And I always say that development services at downtown, they've got this acetate, what they call the template of doom, that shows the radius of trash trucks driving on your property. And so again, that's just one of those requirements that you have. Fire department requires certain access. Flood control. There's one section right now on Broadway at Arroyo Chico that is currently in the floodplain. Though our understanding is that when the extension of downtown links goes to the freeway, that will solve that and take that property out of the floodplain. So hopefully that issue will be going away. Utilities, power poles, and that sort of thing affect you, and then as well as the code for the Americans with Disabilities Act for handicap access, mainly sidewalks and things there. So with those things, one of the things you'll find out is your property is either conforming to all those or non-conforming. And one of the things that's important for you to do is to be able to go and find, if at all possible, find your last approved site plan. If you can find that will allow you to be able to understand if you do conform to those or not, or where you can work from the city. If you can't find that, they might be able to work off of an aerial photo from 2005. But I think that's one of the key next steps that we can talk about here as we move forward. So the other thing I think that we really want to get into, I mean, there's these regulations, but really what we've been hearing from a lot of you is just sort of the realities of what functions on your property. And we know that obviously parking is a huge issue. Sometimes we've been hearing about how to be able to find ways to reduce parking, but I think the reality is, and we'd love to be able to see transit and more walkability. I mean, that is absolutely critical and a great opportunity here, but we also realize that a lot of you really depend upon parking to be able to bring in business and for your employees. That's still just a reality in our society. So we want to hear about that. We've got options. We actually have done a whole series of these diagrams. You see them on the sides of the room. Originally, we were requested to do these diagrams to say, what happens if you have a 60-foot deep of property left, or 80-foot deep? Is it possible to redevelop that? So we did a variety of these diagrams just to say what if. They're certainly not perfect, but they might be tools or examples that give you an idea of what might be possible. One of the things that, as a clarification as well, that we have to add is that even though we are architects, and there's other folks from Swaim Associates here as well that to be able to assist today, we're on the team for the Broadway widening. We can't give you the actual solutions. We can give you some ideas and where the tools are and how you might be able to work together. But ultimately, you need to be able to get together with architects and planners. There's some great ones right along the corridor, maybe even joining us today. The American Institute of Architects has architects, again, that can come in and help you finally solve this. So we don't want to be able to give you a false impression of here's your perfect solution, but again, we want to give you tools and show you how to be able to move forward here. So and there's issues with, obviously being able to have dumpsters and recycling. You can see how much space they potentially take, but there's options you might be able to share with your neighbors, and same sort of thing with loading zones. There's issues with potentially with landscape buffers that would be required as you redevelop. The access to your site, as we widen the road, you may be losing a curb cut, and so how do you have access to your site? Maybe it's one of the possibilities that we might be able to consider. It's not currently approved for commercial property, but alley access. There's a lot of alleys back here. We do it downtown in some conditions. So we've got some tools on how that might work, and we want to find out from you if you're interested, if you're already doing it, what's possible. There's some interesting scenarios in whether it's even along Speedway or other places where alley access for retail and others might work fairly well. Sidewalks. One of the things you notice with these different alignments, some of these sidewalks, it may not be the traditional sidewalk out in the face of the street and then parking and landscape and then up to your building. Some of these, it may be more of an urban design where the sidewalk is the sidewalk right in front of your store or your business. We want to hear from you about, does that work? Does it not? And there may be some real positive benefits, but again, those are issues we want to be able to understand how that can work and impact your property. Okay. Issues with signage, the actual buildings themselves in terms of how you can redevelop if you're just losing a piece of your building, how might you redevelop and what the impacts are there. Setbacks, again, the setbacks, the side yard setbacks from other business zones is 0. But right now there are setbacks from the front property line. We might be able to modify those in some different ways with tools and things like that. How you may want to be able to expand your building, and ultimately, I think our vision is that that Broadway in this section is going to be this new urban character with walkability, with bikes and kind of this thriving community, really one with your own character of maybe a cross between 4th Avenue and I don't know quite what it is, but I think that's part of the vision, and we want to be able to see how we can help you get there. Because I think ultimately we also want to be able to have mass transit, and it probably needs some greater density to be able to allow that to happen. Maybe you want to be able to put an apartment above your office or your store, something that again, there's some options out there. We want to kind of help get that direction. So the next step, I want to be able to bring up Trish Galen from the City of Tucson. One of the exciting things that the city has committed to is to have Trish be an ombuds person. She is going to be the person to be able to be kind of your main point of contact as you move forward. Get to know her really well. She's got a lot of experience with the city, great personality to kind of be helpful and allow you to help maneuver through this process. So Trish is going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that may be available to how we can go forward.